when I came to Commonwealth, from day one and ever since, I've always believed everyone has the best intentions of the business. So as we scramble and we debate and we face challenges and issues, and we certainly don't always agree, and there can be stress. In order to do that effectively and over again, just knowing that we all have each other's backs, and if we disagree, once a decision is made, we'll fall in line behind that decision and all commit. And importantly, all move forward and on to the next issue, if you will. So never worried about anyone promoting themselves over the other or negative consequences down the line.
Our guest today is Commonwealth Financial Network's President and COO, Trap Kloman. Trap's got a great pile of experience in the financial and consulting services industries, growing and scaling and transforming businesses to ensure their growth, their strength, and also to be able to build those businesses inside of these evolving industries. He's also really good at elevating the firm's company cultures, and he's going to talk a lot about that and get into some of the employee net promoter score and advisors net promoter score. They have a 92 NPS right now, which is way above world class. Commonwealth is also focused on being known as the indisputable best partner to client-centric advisors in the financial services space, and Commonwealth is doing an unbelievable job with that. Trap was also the first outside leader coming into the organization 9.5 years ago. He's going to speak to that and how to do that successfully. He's also going to talk a lot about how a CEO can actually move out of the business and let a leadership team grow and continually scale the company for them, which is a real skill that most companies are not very good at. You're going to love this episode. We'll see you on the inside. So Trap, welcome to the Second in Command podcast.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to this. I met your CEO, Joe, on a boat up in way north of the North Pole, like 80 degrees latitude, about 2 months ago. Was talking to him about the business and realized that you were really the guy running it. He'd built a you and he had built a very successful financial services firm. How long have you been running the business absent of the CEO and founder, really?
Sorry to screw this up right out of the gate.
Yeah.
I should have mentioned Joe is the founder, was the CEO. We have a CEO today, Wayne Bloom, who's been here 35 years and has been the CEO for the past 15 or so. So I came in 10 years ago, and about 6 years ago became president and COO. So,
all right. Well, I don't think you're screwing that up at all then. I'm going to keep that in because I think it's better to even hear exactly how it rolls out. So I met the founder then, Joe.
Yes.
And then when did Joe exit the business 10 years ago, like to become more chairman? And when did Wayne move into the CEO role then?
Yeah, well, what's interesting is how they did it together. They'd been together for so long, as well as the entire management team. One of the towering strengths of Commonwealth and why I think it has sustained beyond the early days is because of what Joe built and the people he attracted around him, the core principles he set, never bent on, and then he understood his strengths, but also his not necessarily weaknesses, but areas that he didn't have the same passion or expertise in, and found the right team to surround himself with. So that team really, in the 90s and through the 2000s, built Commonwealth to the point where Joe, and I'm not going to have the exact date, but Joe in the late 2000s was able to step back and really focus as founder and chairman of Commonwealth. And he continued till to this day, he continues to be very involved in terms of meeting with the executive team, quarterly board meetings. So he both has the finger on the pulse of the company. And you mentioned something a second ago, how you met Joe. You met him on an Arctic tour. One of the reasons I think Joe is such an inspirational and successful leader is he brings experiences from all walks of life, all the people he meets, and he brings it back to Commonwealth to make us stronger. So if you just live in your little echo chamber and stay in your little bubble and follow what everyone else is doing, you're never going to be disruptive. You're never going to be innovative long term. And one of the reasons I think Joe has been successful is his willingness and appetite to look beyond our little world of financial services. Wayne was with him for probably a good 20 years before he stepped into CEO and was really able to keep that continuity. And so how they work together, how the rest of the partnership works together, I consider myself one of the luckiest people. We've jumped right into it, but I was one of the first outside hires at the executive level, and I got to walk into an amazing situation that I had never seen before. So I've just been very fortunate that they've let me be a part of it and help continue it.
All right. So you've just touched on a whole bunch of points there that I wrote down. kind of really interesting bar note is that, you said that Joe as a founder is often off at these events and bringing back kind of what he learns and bringing back some of the culture of what he's exposed to. And I think it's a reason why every CEO needs to be in two mastermind groups and every COO needs to be in two mastermind groups. One group has to be in your industry, right? Where you're absorbing the best practices, you're kind of benchmarking against the industry, you're kind of passing each other the trade secrets on how to scale successfully. That's invaluable. But then the second is getting outside of your industry, almost as far away as you can get from your industry, where you're plugged into a global audience, you're plugged into CEOs or COOs from lots of different businesses. And I kind of call it ideas having sex. You take an idea from outside your industry and an idea inside your industry, and they have a little idea baby. And that's, the stuff that you're going to scale with. So I'm glad you even mentioned that.
I love that. I fully subscribe to that.
So walk us through I'm going to talk just one question about Joe, and then I'm going to switch over to talking about you and Wayne, and then really around you and Commonwealth itself. When Joe comes back into the business, like at board meetings or at quarterlies, how does he successfully do that? And how does he orbit the day-to-day, and how does he orbit the details and kind of stay away from the stuff that so often, entrepreneurial leaders are attracted to? How does he stay away from that and let you and the team run the business, and he just kind of come in for the quarterlies and leave? How does he do that successfully?
Sure. I think it's a combination of, it starts with a strong foundational knowledge. He knows this industry as well as anyone. He's one of the pioneers in the independent channel of this industry. We're in the retail wealth management space, and that predominantly was an employee model, well through the 70s into the 80s. And Joe, including a few others, but Joe's one of the towering people in the space. He really built the independent model that allowed advisors greater independence and to break away and put their clients first. And so, Joe's knowledge of the industry is exceptional, but I think what's as important, if not more, is his understanding and curiosity of people and behavior. That always keeps his views and his knowledge and his experiences very present. And then, to answer the other part of your question is, the trust he has in the team and the team has in Joe. He built Commonwealth with this idea of quality and community. He never wanted to sacrifice anything for the short-term benefit or financial gain. Everything was built around long-term growth and success built by great people with great people. And so that just builds so much trust in a relationship. And so as it enables him to go pursue some of his interests and explore other areas, but then come right back into the business and be up to date, be present, be impactful, be valuable. And so Wayne and I, are very lucky that, we have that relationship with Joe, and we've built experience in the industry that, trust is a two-way street. Trust doesn't go one way. Joe has complete trust in us, and likewise, we have complete trust in Joe. And I'd be remiss not to mention, and I think it's probably interesting, we have two owners, Peter Wheeler as well, who very much fits a similar mold as Joe. But Joe has also done a fantastic job. His son has come into the business, Matt Deitch. And one of the things you often hear is, second generation, watch out. But in our case, it's been a real addition to the company and to the leadership team. So as I think about how we lead, it's not any one individual that rises out in front of everyone else. We work collaboratively, recognizing everything we all bring to the table. And, Matt Deitch is a Wharton MBA, worked at BCG, and went out into his own. So, happy to say, I think Joe did a fantastic job raising an impressive son. And over the years, Matt started to circle back into our space and provide value, and just had growing interest in what we were doing. It's a very dynamic industry. It's a competitive industry. And so I think Matt was excited about the challenges and opportunities we have. And so he really kind of filled out this board/leadership team that we have with Pete, Joe, Matt, Wayne, and myself. And it's been a lot of fun.
That's cool. I'm going to go into some questions around that part too then. So I want to ask you a little bit around the transition stage. I'd say about half of our listeners to the Second in Command podcast are CEOs, the other half are COOs. Speaking to the CEO who wants to move into more of this chairman role or exit the business in an active way and have the team continue to run it for him, What are two or three things that you've got to make sure the company is doing well and doing properly that will allow that to happen? Because otherwise you're just abdicating and things are going to fall apart. What do you have to make sure is happening so that you can step away?
It's interesting. I was part of another company where the founder and CEO, once he was ready to move on, just wanted to cut ties because, I don't want to speak for him, but basically he's like, I'm no longer the founder and CEO, so, it's best for me just to move on and forward. And he did exceptionally well. Joe obviously took a different approach. And I think it's two critical things need to exist beyond what we already spoke about. One being is what I think most people enjoy and is fun is talking about strategy, the direction, the future of the company. Part of the executive team's responsibility is to be looking ahead of the curve and preparing for the unknown, while continuing hopefully to be innovative and disruptive. That's all well and good, and frankly, I don't think that's the hard part. There are not a lot of secrets out there. Strategy is more aligning where the industry is headed, where is their demand, with feasibility and viability, making sure that we have the resources and the capabilities to meet that demand and do so profitably. And that unlocks strategy. I don't think many firms are doing anything all that different than we are, but it's that assessment, that balancing act that really unlocks it. But the other key part is, and something that I'm passionate about, it's one thing to have a great strategy, but how many firms can successfully implement it, and even more importantly, sustainably. It's easy to slap something together. You can get quick wins. You can definitely spend a lot with marketing. But if you don't have a sustainable foundation that has strong workflows, exceptionally strong communication, so people are empowered and can continue the flywheel, if you will, then eventually, it will all come to an end. And I think with what Joe, Pete, and the original partners built at Commonwealth is we were continually investing in that foundation, and we're doing so again today. As companies grow bigger in size, IT's disruptive new competition, you don't solve it once and then set it and forget it. You have to come back to it and take a look again and evolve again, which is exactly what we're doing.
I like that explanation. I like that the specifics on that. There's something else that you're doing that I think if a company ever sat down strategically and said, people, like it's all about people. And if we can really focus on people and keeping our people happy and keeping our people with our company for long periods of time, especially at the leadership team level, we'll win. And strategically, I don't think anybody ever does that because they think it's really tough to do. Commonwealth and you and the team at Commonwealth are clearly doing something well, because I think you mentioned before we went live that the leadership team's kind of all been there for 10 years plus, some of them for much longer than that. And you kind of were the first big senior outside hire coming into the organization 9.5 years ago. Why do people stay? What is it that you're doing well? Can you walk us through some specific things that you think Commonwealth does that have people stay? Because that was the normal for the traditionalists and the baby boomers. Staying in a company for 10 years was normal. For Gen X, it was like 5 to 7. Gen Y is like 3 to 5, and Gen Z is like 6 months.
One level, I can never do it justice. It's one of those things that's hard to define, and certainly in the amount of time that we have. But it does start with just how you treat people. And I'll actually use my own experiences at some other firms. It's not meant to be positive or negative. I certainly believe there isn't one way to do anything. But when I came to Commonwealth, from day one and ever since, I've always believed everyone has the best intentions of the business. So as we scramble and we debate and we face challenges and issues, and we certainly don't always agree, and there can be stress, and there's some consequential decisions to be made. That's a huge responsibility of any leadership team to both take care of the clients and all their employees and make sure we can keep this going. So in order to do that effectively and over again, just knowing that we all have each other's backs, and if we disagree, once a decision is made, we'll fall in line behind that decision and all commit. And importantly, all move forward and on to the next issue, if you will. So never worried about anyone promoting themselves over the other or negative consequences down the line. It just reflects the quality of the people that are attracted to Commonwealth in the first place, and making sure as we hire throughout the firm, it's not just at the executive level, but all the way down to the entry level. We're always looking for that type of characteristic in people. And again, it just starts to really self-perpetuate. And so, our leadership team has been here for quite some time. And one of the things I'm proud of is I'd say at this point in our size and evolution, because we've grown tremendously, is we've done a great job of having great contributions from our existing leadership while adding new talent to the point where I'd say we're probably 60-40 with having brought in new, since I joined 9.5 years ago. And I cringe a little bit when I say I was kind of the first one. It makes it sound bigger or more special than normal course of business. But since then we've added, other leadership, CFO, general counsel, as well as some people, successfully retired. And I think we've done a great job of perpetuating that quality of people and getting the best of both worlds. The legacy leaders who built the firm as well, and you mentioned it earlier, bringing some people in from the outside who know the industry well and bring in some fresh ideas, but make it Commonwealth.
Okay, so you mentioned something that I've actually never had anyone mention on a podcast before. I mean, we've done over 400 episodes, and this is the first I've ever heard it. You said some senior people retiring from the organization. What's it like when you have a senior person who's showing up every day? They're happy, they're engaged, they're living the core values, they've been there for everywhere, they're kind of the Wikipedia of the company, and then it's time to retire. Like, this is very different from someone quitting, because you know that they're younger and they're looking, but you don't anticipate someone wrapping up their career and saying, okay, I'm done. What's the transition like for a company that has that happening? How do you work through that transition with that exiting senior person or long-term person?
Even if this part's unique, what the reason for the success or how we continue to do it so well, I think is, communication. If you sit down and you're planning the future, the goals of the firm, and people can see themselves where they're adding value and how they're part of that, and then they're thinking about their own life and their own goals and balancing that, it just inevitably brings about a very natural discussion on transition. And I can't say that everything has been perfect and smooth, but for many of the people who have transitioned in their careers, and in some cases, we have several, simply call, it's simplistic, but emeritus status. So, they might still be part of the community in certain ways. They just don't have the same roles and responsibilities they did before. And that's been a very natural way for them to transition. And we get the best of, their experiences and their presence, while they get to benefit from shifting their life priorities and enjoying more of what they want to do after creating so much success. So I think really having that patience and recognizing where everyone can still add value leads to a great glide path.
It's a huge glide path. You mentioned, or I know that a lot of companies manage and measure their net promoter score on the customer side of the business. You guys measure it on the employee side of the business, which I used to do when I was the COO for 1-800-GOT-JUNK. I'm curious how you measure, NPS internally for employees, how often, and then what do you do with those data points? And how are you doing currently?
One of our favorite topics. And one of the things that is worth distinguishing. So, mentioned earlier how or Joe helped found and create the independent financial advisor space. And so we have it's not a unique business model. There are many other businesses in our space with a similar one, but we're all familiar with the brand names of the employee model, where the advisor is the employee of the firm and often at the direction of that firm. Many advisors have broken away from that. There's approximately 300,000 in the industry, retail financial advisors, and over half have broken away to set up their own shop, their own brand. So a lot of what Commonwealth is we're a middle and back office for financial advisors. And one of the reasons I'm sure many listeners have never heard of Commonwealth is we believe it's the advisor's brand, whether it's their personal name or something aspirational like Summit Wealth Management. That is what is valuable and important in their communities. So we don't want to put our brand ahead of them. And at the end of the day, that financial advisor, they're choosing to work with us. We have to earn their business every day. They can go to another firm within 30 days. So they're technically independent contractors. And then the end investor is their customer, their client, if you will. The NPS score, it's generated by JD Power. They surveyed the industry for independent financial advisors. The 11 times the award's been handed out, it wasn't in every consecutive year, but for every year it has been, including I think the last 5 or 6, Commonwealth has won every year.
Wow.
Every JD Power award. And part of that survey includes the NPS. And this past year, our NPS score was 92, which was also leading by a notable number. So we're proud of that. our goal, we don't have written into our goals, win the next GD Power or get an NPS of 92. The way we think about it, again, because they're independent contractors, is we strive to be worthy of recognition, but the goal isn't to get that recognition. I think that would lead to a perverse set
Yeah, totally.
consequences, because we're only as good as tomorrow and the service we can provide them. As great as we have been for the last 30 years, if we don't continue it, they're gone. And so that's one of the things that I frankly love about our business model. I think a lot of people talk about how long-term contracts and people are tied up and, this is great. And I think you can actually lose your edge. You can become less sharp when it's that easy. When you have to earn it every day, it creates a very different mindset. And I think that's one of the strengths of our model.
Well, and a positive 92 net promoter score correlates to approximately a 9.8 or a 9.9 average rating out of 10. It's very high. A lot of people don't understand what a positive 90 means. That they kind of think of it like a 9.0 out of 10, and they're very, very different. According to the Net Promoter Score group, a positive 50% is considered world class.
Yep.
When you're over positive 80%, you're actually starting to win awards in your state or country in terms of being a best managed, or certainly in your industry as best managed, which is what's showing up on the JD Power. Can you give me one or two specific things, do you think, that make the advisors, the independent advisors that are part of Commonwealth so happy?
Sure. I think one of the leading things, just keeping in mind the industry we're in, which, financial services, not always known for incredible service. One of the foundational things that Joe and the partners wanted out of Commonwealth was to be indispensable, to make a profound difference to the advisors. And if you think back to the 80s when Commonwealth was growing, well into the 90s, and what indispensable meant then, it was picking up the phone, was having experts on the other end of the line, and being accountable and being responsive, communicating, setting expectations, then surpassing them. And so that level of white glove service and not turning people into numbers, we still use the advisors by name, if you will, where many other firms you call and you give them their ID number, you punch it in, and away you go. We try and keep the call times, the hold times, the wait times under a minute, if not under 10 seconds. We measure all of that. We measure advisor satisfaction annually, not just through the JD Power score, but through annual surveys of our advisors when we're in their office and ask them how we're doing. And then I think one of the great things, which I do believe differentiates us, is what we have the feedback tool, which on every page of our internal site, there's a little button to click. If you have an idea or a complaint or an issue, click the feedback tool. And every day, first email that comes in is a summary of all the feedback in the last 24 hours from all our advisors.
Wow.
And I'd say over 100 people, including everyone on the executive team, gets that. And we all read it every day. I remember when I joined and I joined as CFO, and I'm like, oh, I'm a CFO, I'm not too worried about the feedback. And I showed up to the first executive team meeting, and they're talking about the feedback, and I hadn't read it. That is what the firm focuses on. It's not how much was recruited that year, what's this year's revenue. We look at that, of course, we follow it. But the number one thing is the feedback. And as important, it's one thing to collect it. We respond almost without exception within 24 hours. Maybe can't solve it all, but the advisor feels heard, they know where we're going, and they know what's coming next within the same day, if not 24 hours. So if you don't act upon it, then you're just going to set expectations and fail to meet them and create a whole nother set of problems. So it's the fact that we do it and we act on it. And that means a lot to advisors. Think of not just in our space, but in almost any business, whether you're a consumer or an employee, the ability to do that, to feel heard and know what's coming. May not always be a yes or exactly what they hope for, but again, that's okay. People want expectations set, and we strive to do it. We're not perfect, but it continues to guide us. And I've heard other firms remark that, can't believe you do that. That seems like a huge waste of time and money. And we're just like, yes, we love that this is our competition, because that's exactly why they don't have high employee or advisor satisfaction. It's why they don't have sustained growth. And it's why they have a more cyclical business.
Yeah, it's intriguing. I love the idea of the feedback form or feedback button. I think it's incredible. I just jotted down a note to myself to see if it's possible to do a confidential Slack channel where our members of the COO Alliance can just send us feedback in this confidential channel where they can just literally on the fly drop stuff in, but we can't see who it's from. But I'd love the rest of the community to see the feedback too. I think it could be very powerful to show, and then to show that we're listening. So when you get the feedback, how do you act on the feedback as a leadership team? How do you decide which feedback is just nice to know and which feedback is we need to make some changes based on this?
So there's a couple ways we tackle it, and one you even just mentioned, which is we do expose it to the community. Now that sometimes needs some filters and clean up, which is
Sure.
okay. But that way, others in the community can say, "Oh, I had the same idea. I want to vote on that," and so that helps us crowdsource a
Mm.
little bit. So half the point of the feedback tool is an individual has a problem, and we care about every individual, and we're going to respond to that individual. Put our finger in the dam, put a band-aid over it, whatever it is, let's solve the immediate problem and need. But you already hit upon the bigger opportunity, which is great. We put out the fire. Now let's see, is there a bigger root cause issue?
Yeah.
And, especially in this day and age, 10, 15 years ago, I wasn't here. I don't know how they did it as easily. But now with the data we have, we can look at all the feedback and start to see trends. And where are there issues where our training is letting the advisors down, where the technology is not working correctly, where there's a new service that they're demanding. So we get our best ideas from our advisors. And, not that we don't lack a little bit of hubris, but we feel we have the best advisors in the industry. Are predominantly fee-based, they're client-centric, the financial planners. They're larger than the average by multiples of other advisors in the industry. So we'd be crazy not to listen to them. And so they're constantly giving us the best ideas and helping strengthen the community and the strategic direction of the firm. And, as I said, strategy isn't the hard part. It's the
Yeah.
implementation and the sustainability. That's the trick.
That's the tough for sure. No, you guys are dealing with it in a nice way. It's interesting. I learned something years ago about putting feedback or receiving feedback from the team and then how we act on the feedback. And I think one of the big mistakes that most companies do is they act on the feedback, but they don't let the rest of the company know. So as an example, the one person who's saying the dishwasher is broken, and then we replace the dishwasher, we go to that one employee saying, "Hey, thanks for letting us know the dishwasher is broken. We fixed it." The bigger opportunity is to go back to the whole company and say, one of the bits of feedback we got was the dishwasher's broken. We fixed it with a new one, and everybody goes, "Wow, you're listening to the whole company," right? Or we heard that we wanted more of an open door policy from our recent feedback, so we're acting on that. Well, the other 90% that didn't need more open door are still happy that you acted on an idea from the team. It's a really, really interesting way to kind of work on the delivery to get additional leverage. And then the cost of acting on anything is almost zero, because the upside is 100% of the team feel excited that we're listening, even though it was only 2% of the people that wanted that one thing changed.
I love that. I fully agree with it. And I did you watch Ted Lasso?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's maybe even the first episodes, certainly the first two, where they fixed the shower. And that was just, they had their little idea suggestion box. And one of the things, everyone was laughing at it, who does anything with this. But
Right.
one of the things was the shower was terrible, and they fixed the shower. And that was the first turning point in the relationship. Very
I think
powerful.
I captured that same lesson as you did on that one too. It's like you do the easy wins that everybody can see, and then that builds trust in the organization that we're listening, we're collaborative, we're working with them, right? And so,
Yep.
and by the way, the number one metric that I have every one of our COO Alliance members focusing on, more than revenue, more than profit, more than customer NPS, the number one metric is employee net promoter score. Because I think,
It's something, so we were talking about our advisors, but yeah, likewise, we survey our employees every year, do an engagement survey. And the engagement word is very intentional to see how engaged they are.
mm,
And one of the challenges with surveys, as I'm sure you know and experience, was point in time bias. If someone has a bad
sure.
day or bad week, whatever, that can seep into it. That's important to know too. One of the things that I think also underpins a lot of the people who are attracted to Commonwealth, and certainly me, is, I think life can be great, life is exciting, but life can also be hard. And I want work to be something that people are excited about and overall view as a positive part of their lives, not a necessary evil, if you will. And so when we think about our employees' engagement as well, honestly, I think we need to be doing a little bit better there. We're listening, we're working hard, we're hearing, we need to communicate more to our own employees, not just the what, but the why and the how. And so that's something that you can never take for granted. And especially as firms grow and experience change, that can sometimes be caught in the shuffle. And so we're very committed to that. And, I'd love, either now or offline, follow up a bit more with you about how you've been successful there and any lessons you've learned or even failures, on trying to learn from employee engagement and employee surveys.
Yeah, that's been a lot of what my focus has always been too, is learning from the failures, learning from the successes of other companies and trying to rip off and duplicate and bring it in.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about being one of the first outside executives coming into the company. What was it like for you coming into an organization? What role did you come in at, by the way? And then what was it like coming in, and what do you think they did well in that onboarding of bringing a first senior person in, to make you feel at home and comfortable and get you up to speed? And what do you think the company could have done better?
Two-part equation in terms of what can and should a company do, and then you don't want to make everything cookie cutter where you're not recognizing the individuals coming in. So, I came in as CFO, and one of the great things right out of the gate was the accessibility and exposure I had to the entire leadership team. I was also very lucky in that the former CFO had moved up to president and COO. He was still there, accessible for me to grow into my role and be a fantastic mentor. And it does go back to everyone has the best intentions. There was no competition. There was no drifting back, and this is Rich Hunter, who was a fantastic mentor. He could have really micromanaged me because he knew the job better than me out of the gate. But he very generously and thoughtfully gave me the space to grow and learn, but he was always there as a resource. And then likewise with the rest of the firm, just working with the other partners, they were, accessible, supportive. Everyone was rooting for me to succeed. I remember when the CEO, Wayne, specifically said that to me, people are rooting for you. I think that most people do want to root for each other's success. And oddly, I never quite thought about it that way. And so that made all the difference. And that gives you room to fail, if you will, make mistakes and know that
We got the support.
as long as you learn from them and grow from them and apply the lessons from them, you're going to be okay. And not every environment fosters that, where a mistake or failure can create a lot of stress that leads to a lack of productivity and certainly a waste of time. So I felt great about that. On the flip side, one of the areas we've grown is we brought in more executives from the outside over the last 10 years since I've been here, is we have formalized a few things. Here's some training, educational material. Here's a prescribed way to meet with people versus navigating it more organically. So as we've gotten bigger, we look for ways to facilitate things and guide people, if you will, while still recognizing that everyone comes in with different experiences, different knowledge bases, different relationships. And so let's be flexible and let's continue just to have fun.
That makes sense too. I like all that. So now all of a sudden you've got the son of one of the founders coming back into the organization. You got Matt coming back in. Again, he's been out working for other firms, out working in the financial services space or the, I guess, business consulting space with, What was that like, bringing the founder in? How did the company work through the nepotism or the, oh my gosh, it's the founder's son stuff? Like, how do you season and how do you kind of pre-seed it and get everybody ready for it? And then how do you kind of make sure you're successful as you bring them in?
As leaders, sometimes we do need to be extremely thoughtful, plan out, and orchestrate to help ensure success. I'd say in this case, it was very organic. We all knew Matt, especially the older founders, who were here as Matt grew up. They all knew each other, had a relationship. Even the advisors, our customers, knew Matt and had a relationship. So I think that there was the ease of that. And then importantly, Matt's just a great person. He knows what the business is. He knows why it's different and valuable in the industry that we're in. And he respects what other people have built that he hadn't been a part of. So when he came in, there wasn't that risk of someone having to prove themselves, prove their worth, do things differently for the sake of being different. And it started off largely with a consulting engagement. Matt being a consultant, we actually had built our own homegrown internal technology platform. Joe and the rest of the team were one of the first movers to the internet, which is now a very old thing to say, 30 years in. But back in the day when Joe and the team made that decision, a lot of other competitors were on legacy platforms, not even servers back in the day. And so the move to the internet early on then helped foster constant IT innovation. And we built one of the best wealth management advisor platforms, IT platforms in the industry, and had immense value. And then we provided our great indispensable service in support of it. A few years ago, with the IT arms race exploding and the amount of capital that IT consumes, we realized we needed more users on that platform. Now, we could have acquired another firm, we could have started recruiting, lowering our standards, and letting anyone in the door, if you will, but that would all be flying in the face of quality and community and that short-term versus long-term thinking that we talked about. And so we ultimately spun out what is now called Advisor 360 as an independent company, and a second company quickly signed on. And this was about 5 years ago. The focus of the Advisor 360 was to stabilize as an independent company outside of Commonwealth and onboard that second company, Mass Mutual. And so that was a big endeavor. It was very exciting. And they've been successful. And they've recently added a third client. And so we're thrilled by that growth. But back to the question, which is, Matt came on to help consult with that very complex endeavor. And as I said, he enjoyed it. We enjoyed having him. He brought a skill set that wasn't a towering strength for Commonwealth at the time, or certainly a formal one. And so building off of that relationship, he came in and continued to build out our strategy and our marketing, if you will. So for several years was rolling up his sleeves in the business. He's now part of the board, and he's on other boards as well. And so he's been very successful, and what he and Joe and Pete have built has set us up for long-term success and ultimately choice. We don't have to make a decision out of necessity as Joe and Pete grow older. We have Matt, we have a strong financial base, we have control of our future, which is a great thing to have, and sometimes gets lost as the next generation comes on, whether it's for poor trust and estate planning, or whether it's the next generation, frankly, isn't qualified, or you struggle to transition from original management to next generation management. We're tackling all of those things, and so far feel pretty good about it.
I love that. All right. I want to go back to the 21, 22-year-old Trap, and I want you to give yourself some advice. The first bit of advice is, what is it that you wish you'd known when you were younger that you know to be true today? And the second bit of advice is, because a lot of our listeners are looking to get a COO role with a great company. What advice would you give yourself at a younger age on how to start finding the better companies to work with and to get in their doors?
Yeah, I think part of it, I never lacked for a certain level of confidence, but often it was insecure confidence, if you will. Maybe that fake it till you make it type approach, because I thought there was a secret. I thought there was a knowledge and just something that came with experience that all of a sudden unlocked one's ability to become a great leader. It wasn't necessarily age driven, but I kept looking around, and I think one of the reasons I have been successful is I would study people and try and figure out what I liked about them, or what, frankly, I wouldn't. What I would do differently in their position. And I got great exposure at a young age, but I often, I think, held myself back because I'm like, I just can't be ready yet. They have something that I can't define or figure out, and I got to go figure that out. And just the older I've gotten, you realize how much you have to, build a career based on trust, and not necessarily recognizing weaknesses, but recognizing where you need to complement yourself with great people around you. You can't be everything. If you try and promote yourself as the answer to everything and be a top-down leader, I think over time that's at a minimum exhausting, but probably not in the best interest of the firm. And you're going to get exposed. And so as I kind of started to come around, so at a younger age, I wish I had a little bit more confidence in myself. And then, as I think about other people looking to take that next leap, it's not that you have to have every qualification and every experience and it all figured out. It's you have to have the trust and confidence that you know how to run a process, diagnose a problem, and then both bring your own experience to it, which has great value, have confidence in that. But as important, recognize where you don't, and then surround yourself with complementary people who share your principles, but have different backgrounds, different experience, different expertise, and trust them, and away you go. It's working out for me here. I love the team. that we have at Commonwealth. It's just a phenomenal group of people.
Well, you've definitely done a great job with it. You've definitely landed in a great company, and for 9.5 years playing a great role. Trap Kloman, the president and COO for Commonwealth. Thanks very much for sharing with us on the Second in Command podcast.
Yeah, I've enjoyed this, and thanks for all you're doing for the community. I really appreciate it.
I've doubted so many times not to do things. I've questioned things. I've failed probably 6, 7 businesses by now. And I wouldn't change a thing looking back. And so I'm really grateful for all the failures because they were stepping stones in the end. And so I think that we're often so afraid